Imagine a time when Saturday mornings were sacred, when the glow of a box-shaped television filled living rooms with laughter and wonder. Yet behind the charm of Hanna-Barbera's animated empire lies a vault of forgotten experiments. Some were too weird, too risky, or simply too ahead of their time. Tonight we unlock that vault and rediscover 20 forgotten Hanna-Barbera shows from the 1960s that vanished into obscurity. Number 20, The Potamus Show, 1964. When it first aired, The Potamus Show was seen as a light-hearted adventure series meant for younger audiences. Peter, a purple hippopotamus with a sunny disposition, traveled the world in his hot air balloon, accompanied by his friend, So-So the monkey. Each episode mixed adventure comedy and gentle morals, making it a cheerful addition to Hanna-Barbera's growing lineup. But beneath its bright surface, trouble brewed. ABC struggled to market the show to older children who preferred action-heavy programs like Jonny Quest. Parents criticized its repetitive humor, while network censors cut scenes that mocked colonial explorers, fearing it would offend international audiences. The show's time slot constantly shifted, leaving loyal fans confused. Behind the scenes, the animation team was stretched thin, balancing work across multiple Hanna-Barbera projects. Production delays caused recycled frames and weak story continuity. Even the famous Hippo Hurricane Holler catchphrase failed to keep it afloat. By 1966, the show was quietly canceled, its reruns buried under newer titles. Years later, Peter Potamus returned briefly on Cartoon Network's Boomerang, but only as a nostalgic cameo. For a brief moment, the cheerful hippo floated across screens once more before fading again into history. Number 19, Wally Gator, 1962. Wally Gator was meant to charm audiences as a lovable alligator living in a zoo, constantly escaping in search of adventure. He wore a hat and collar, spoke politely, and dreamed of freedom. The concept was Hanna-Barbera's attempt to mix slapstick humor with quiet social commentary about conformity and individuality. But television executives found it confusing. Some critics saw Wally's yearning to escape captivity as an accidental metaphor for rebellion during a decade of social unrest. Southern affiliates worried the setting evoked uncomfortable racial symbolism and requested edits. Others simply found it too strange for children who preferred the simpler antics of Yogi Bear. Animation problems also haunted production. Limited budgets forced reuse of backgrounds and awkward character motions. Voice actor Dawes Butler delivered charm, but the scripts lacked consistent punch. Hanna-Barbera's creative focus had already shifted to newer projects like the Flintstones, leaving Wally behind. By 1963, the Gator's adventures ended without ceremony. Few toys were sold, and no reruns aired for decades. When rediscovered in the 1990s, fans saw it differently. Wally became a cult favorite, representing the lonely dreamer trapped in an artificial world. A forgotten cartoon with a soul that only time could appreciate. Number 18, Touché Turtle and Dum Dum, 1962. Touché Turtle was Hanna-Barbera's sword-wielding reptile knight, gallantly charging into danger with his loyal companion, Dum Dum, a shaggy dog with boundless optimism. The show was absurd, energetic, and designed to mimic the swashbuckling heroes of earlier decades. Children adored the catchphrase, "Touché away," but the excitement did not last. Censors soon noticed the surprising amount of swordplay for a kids' show. Some affiliates demanded edits, citing concerns about promoting violence, even though the battles were mostly comedic. Parents wrote letters complaining that the humor was too frenetic for young viewers. Hanna-Barbera reluctantly toned down the action, replacing daring duels with moral lessons. Behind the scenes, animators struggled to keep up with the fast production schedule. With limited staff, each episode was assembled from recycled action loops. Writers burned out trying to balance humor and adventure, resulting in uneven storytelling. When ratings dipped after one season, the studio shelved the character without fanfare. Touché Turtle later reappeared briefly in Yogi's Ark Lark during the 1970s, but only as a supporting gag. Decades later, animation historians viewed it as an early experiment in action comedy animation. Its charm was real, but its time had simply passed. Number 17, The Adam Ant Show, 1965. When The Adam Ant Show first premiered, audiences were amazed by its quirky mix of superhero parody and insect-sized adventure. Adam Ant, a tiny yet powerful ant, lived inside an anthill laboratory and fought villains ranging from mad scientists to alien invaders. For a brief time, he became a pint-sized icon of courage, symbolizing the optimism and creativity of mid-60s television. But beneath the laughter and buzzing action, controversy loomed. Some parents believed the show's emphasis on atomic power reflected Cold War anxieties. Schools complained that children imitated Adam Ant's flight scenes, leaping off playground equipment. Southern broadcasters even edited out certain jokes about science, fearing they mocked religious values. Behind the cheerful tone lay exhaustion within the studio. Hanna-Barbera was expanding rapidly, and its teams were overworked. Animation shortcuts became obvious with recycled scenes and looped action sequences. Despite its high concept, the series was produced under tight schedules, leading to uneven storytelling. When the show ended in 1967, reruns faded, quietly replaced by newer superhero cartoons with higher budgets. Yet Adam Ant never truly vanished. His tiny heroism influenced later parodies like The Tick and Freakazoid, proving that even the smallest of champions can leave a giant shadow in television history. Number 16. Secret Squirrel, 1965. Secret Squirrel mixed espionage parody with animal comedy at the height of spy fever, inspired by James Bond mania. The stylish agent known only as Secret Squirrel worked for the International Sneaky Service, battling absurd villains with gadgets hidden in his hat. Alongside his assistant Morocco Mole, he represented Hanna-Barbera's bold attempt to blend adult sophistication with kid-friendly humor, but the experiment backfired. Some parents found the tone too violent for Saturday mornings, as each episode featured gunfights, slapstick explosions, and dark humor. Censors cut entire sequences claiming they glamorized espionage. The humor was subtle, almost satirical, leaving children puzzled and sponsors uneasy. Inside the studio, tensions grew. Writers clashed over how far to push the spy parody, while animators reused footage from previous shows to meet network deadlines. Critics dismissed it as a cheap imitation of Bond films. Merchandise sales were disappointing, and the network quickly shifted focus to safer comedies. By 1967, Secret Squirrel had vanished from schedules. Yet decades later, Cartoon Network revived him in brief cameos, transforming him into a cult icon of absurdist nostalgia. Today, animation historians see it as a daring attempt to capture 60s spy culture through a cartoon lens years before parody became mainstream. Number 15. Frankenstein Jr. and the Impossibles, 1966. This bizarre hybrid series split its airtime between two drastically different worlds. In one half, Frankenstein Jr. followed a young boy scientist and his giant robot protector fighting crime across futuristic cities. In the other half, The Impossibles featured a rock band that doubled as superheroes using musical instruments as weapons. It was a chaotic mix of science fiction adventure and 60s pop culture, yet the show's ambition became its undoing. Religious groups protested the Frankenstein theme, calling it blasphemous for turning a monster into a hero. Parents found The Impossibles too loud and strange, fearing its psychedelic style encouraged rebellion. Some affiliates even refused to air episodes they considered too violent for children. Behind the scenes, Hanna-Barbera's creative teams worked tirelessly to meet deadlines. They recycled animation cells across both segments while juggling censorship demands from multiple networks. The result was a visually inventive yet unstable series that exhausted everyone involved. By 1968, the show disappeared from broadcast rotation, leaving few traces beyond scattered merchandise. However, it later gained cult status among collectors for its surreal blend of monster myth and mod culture. Today it stands as a symbol of Hanna-Barbera's fearless experimentation in a decade where imagination often clashed with public caution. Number 14. The Hillbilly Bears, 1965. When the Hillbilly Bears first appeared as part of the Adam Ant Show, it was meant to be simple, rustic comedy. Paw Paw Ma and the children Floral and Shag ran their mountain homestead while constantly feuding with their neighbors. The humor relied on exaggerated accents, slapstick, and family chaos, echoing the backwoods style of shows like the Beverly Hillbillies. Yet controversy arrived quickly. Some Southern viewers claimed the show mocked rural Americans, while others accused it of promoting stereotypes about poor country families. National critics called it tone-deaf and unfunny. Network censors pressured Hanna-Barbera to soften jokes that might offend real Southern audiences. The result was a show that never quite found its identity between satire and sincerity. Behind the scenes, the series was created during a frantic production phase. Writers reused gags from Yogi Bear, while animators juggled multiple projects. The rushed schedule led to inconsistent art quality and uneven storytelling. Even voice actor Don Messick admitted that the mumbling speech patterns frustrated sound engineers. By 1967, the Hillbilly Bears quietly disappeared without any farewell episode. Decades later, reruns surfaced briefly on Boomerang, where fans rediscovered its odd charm. What once seemed outdated now plays like a strange time capsule of American humor trying to bridge city and country worlds with more heart than polish. Number 13. The Space Cadets, 1966. The Space Cadets were a team of adventurous children exploring outer space with their trusty dog, Countdown. At the height of the space race, this show aimed to capture youthful curiosity and cosmic wonder. Each episode featured heroic space missions battles with villains like Captain Skyhook and educational lessons about teamwork. But despite its optimism, the show quickly lost altitude. Parents and educators complained that its science content was too silly, while conservative groups warned against exposing children to space themes during Cold War tension. Some affiliates demanded edits removing references to space weapons, fearing political backlash. Production proved equally chaotic. The animation budget was minimal, and reused footage dominated entire sequences. The rushed schedule caused visual errors, with rockets and characters appearing inconsistently between frames. Meanwhile, ratings struggled to compete against flashy live-action science shows. By 1967, the show was canceled after just one season. For years, it vanished from broadcast archives until a few episodes were rediscovered in poor condition decades later. Animation fans now see the Space Cadets as a symbol of the 60s optimism and fear, blending adventure with the uncertainty of a world looking toward the stars, but unsure what it would find there. Number 12. The Abbott and Costello cartoon show, 1967, adapting the legendary comedy duo Abbott and Costello into animation seemed like a sure success. The show recreated their classic routines with animated exaggeration, turning slapstick into zany cartoon antics. It was nostalgic, a bridge between old vaudeville and modern television, but the results were awkward. Critics accused the show of exploiting the late Lou Costello's image without permission from his estate. The humor that once thrived on timing fell flat in limited animation. Children unfamiliar with the duo found it confusing, while adults felt it cheapened their legacy. Censors also stepped in, cutting scenes they deemed too aggressive or violent, particularly routines that involved slapstick hits or explosive reactions. Voice acting became another problem. Bud Abbott voiced his own character, but Costello's voice was performed by Stan Irwin, which drew harsh criticism from fans who called it disrespectful. Behind the scenes, the production team struggled to blend classic scripts with new storylines. Hanna-Barbera executives hoped nostalgia would carry the show, but instead it faded rapidly after one season. Today, historians regard it as an early example of how nostalgia can misfire when not handled with care. The show's heart was in the right place, but its spirit remained trapped between eras, neither classic nor modern enough to survive. Number 11. The Herculoids, 1967. The Herculoids stood apart from every cheerful comedy Hanna-Barbera had created before. It was dark, bold, and filled with action. On the planet Amzot, a family of warriors led by Xandor battled alien invaders alongside living creatures made of stone, slime, and energy. It was designed to merge science fiction and fantasy years before such combinations became mainstream. Yet the network did not know how to market it. Critics found it too violent for Saturday mornings, and parents protested its explosions and battle cries. Episodes where creatures were vaporized drew the attention of watchdog groups. Censors forced cuts that ruined story flow, and networks moved it to unpredictable time slots. Behind the scenes, animators worked under immense pressure. The art style demanded complex creature motion far beyond typical Hanna-Barbera budgets. Each monster had unique textures that slowed production. Staff worked overnight shifts to meet broadcast deadlines. Though creators like Alex Toth envisioned it as an epic space opera, executives only wanted another toy-friendly show. By 1968, the Herculoids vanished from schedules. But in later decades, reruns captivated new audiences on Cartoon Network. Fans admired its raw imagination and powerful visuals. The show became a cult legend, influencing later series like He-Man and Thundarr the Barbarian. Its legacy proved that even a short-lived experiment could inspire generations of dreamers. Number 10. The Banana Splits, Adventure Hour, 1968. The Banana Splits Adventure Hour mixed costumed characters, live-action segments, and animated shorts into a psychedelic variety show. Fleagle, Bingo, Drooper, and Snorky were bizarre musical animals performing skits and songs between cartoons. It was Hanna-Barbera's attempt to capture 60s counterculture energy in a family-friendly way. But the experiment terrified parents. The surreal visuals, bright colors, and loud music were too strange for comfort. Some newspapers called it television chaos, accusing it of corrupting youth taste. Rumors spread that the show's wild style was inspired by experimental art movements that parents did not understand. Behind the curtain, production was chaos. The costume suits overheated during filming, and the studio's air conditioning failed constantly. Writers clashed with musicians over tone, leading to inconsistent scripts. NBC executives panicked when early ratings fluctuated wildly. Still, the theme song became an earworm, sung by children across America. By the early 70s, the show ended quietly, replaced by safer programming. Yet the Banana Splits refused to die. Its music lived on through nostalgic covers, and decades later, the characters were reimagined in darker forms, proving that even the strangest experiment can echo through pop culture history. Number 9. Shazzan, 1967. Long before superheroes filled every screen, Shazzan offered magic and myth. The story followed Chuck and Nancy, two teenagers, who discovered a pair of ancient rings that summoned the mighty genie Shazzan. Together they soared across mystical lands, battling sorcerers and monsters with epic flair. Despite its originality, it soon faced criticism. Religious groups accused it of promoting occult ideas. Some stations refused to air episodes with heavy magical imagery. Letters flooded network offices demanding the show's cancellation. Hanna-Barbera reluctantly edited several episodes, removing genies and spells that censors considered inappropriate for children. Behind the scenes, the pressure was immense. The creative team wanted to explore Middle Eastern folklore respectfully, but budget limits forced them into repetition. Animation cells were reused heavily, and entire action scenes looped from previous episodes. Voice actor Barney Phillips delivered energy, but even that could not save it from declining ratings. By 1969, Shazzan disappeared from television syndication. Yet years later, fans rediscovered it as a forgotten gem blending myth and adventure in an era dominated by comedy. Today, it stands as one of Hanna-Barbera's bravest risks, a show that reached for the heavens but was silenced by fear of imagination itself. Number 8. Birdman and the Galaxy Trio, 1967. Birdman and the Galaxy Trio was Hanna-Barbera's ultimate attempt to merge superhero grandeur with cosmic adventure. Birdman, an ancient warrior empowered by the sun, fought villains across the skies using his solar shield and energy of Ra. Alongside him, the Galaxy Trio, Meteor Man, Gravity Girl, and Vapor. Man defended alien worlds with powers born from science fiction dreams. But the show quickly collided with controversy. Parents claimed the imagery of radiation and solar power reflected Cold War fears of nuclear energy. Critics complained it was too serious for children, while adults dismissed it as mindless fantasy. Some affiliates even censored fight scenes where Birdman's energy blasts resembled real weapons. Behind the scenes, Hanna-Barbera's studio was stretched thin, creating multiple superhero shows at once. The production staff reused backgrounds from Space Ghost and even recycled sound effects from the Herculoids. Budgets were tight, and episodes were delivered days before broadcast. The creative exhaustion was visible in stiff animation and abrupt endings. By 1968, Birdman faded into obscurity, overshadowed by newer shows. Yet in later years, his name resurfaced unexpectedly when Cartoon Network reimagined him as a parody character. What began as a forgotten hero turned into a cult phenomenon. In a strange twist, Birdman found immortality through irony, his legend reborn from the ashes of forgotten television. Number 7. Samson and Goliath, 1967. Samson and Goliath followed the adventures of a teenage boy and his dog, who could transform into a superpowered duo with the cry of Samson, power of Goliath. Together, they battled giant monsters, alien invaders, and evil scientists across a futuristic Earth. The concept aimed to inspire courage and moral virtue, but the execution sparked debate. Religious groups protested the biblical name, calling it sacrilegious. Educators complained the violence was excessive. Critics accused the show of promoting blind heroism without consequence. Even network sponsors grew uneasy about its tone. Several stations pulled episodes citing fear of complaints. Behind the curtain, animators faced grueling schedules. With just weeks to finish each episode, they recycled transformation sequences endlessly. The team barely had time to design new villains. Writers admitted they wanted to explore deeper stories, but executives demanded non-stop action. The result was thrilling, yet hollow. When ratings slipped, the show ended after one season. For years, it disappeared from television entirely. But decades later, collectors rediscovered it, describing it as one of the strangest superhero attempts of its era. Samson and Goliath now lives in animation history as a relic of ambition over budget, proof that courage and chaos often travel hand in hand. Number 6. Dino Boy in the Lost Valley, 1966. Hidden inside the Space Ghost show was a forgotten treasure called Dino Boy in the Lost Valley. The story followed Todd, a boy who survived a plane crash and found himself in a prehistoric world. Guided by his caveman friend Ugg and his pet dinosaur Bronte, he fought to survive in jungles filled with monsters and mystery. Audiences were fascinated, yet uneasy. Critics found the violence Shocking for a children's cartoon. Scenes of dinosaurs attacking humans drew complaints. Censors forced Hanna-Barbera to tone down intensity, cutting out moments of peril. Parents questioned why such grim storytelling aired on Saturday mornings. Behind the scenes, the series reflected the studio's creative ambition. Artists wanted realism in the dinosaurs' movement and landscapes, but time and money were scarce. Animators reused entire sequences and relied on heavy narration to fill gaps. Despite these flaws, the show carried an emotional core of friendship and survival. By the late 60s, Dino Boy was gone, overshadowed by its companion Space Ghost. Only later did fans realize its influence on later adventure cartoons. Today, it is remembered as one of Hanna-Barbera's boldest experiments, a survival story trapped inside a superhero show. It proved that even within the bright world of animation, darkness could thrive. Number 5. Jonny Quest, 1964. Jonny Quest was meant to be the crown jewel of Hanna-Barbera's 60s catalog, a daring fusion of realism adventure and Cold War espionage. It followed young Johnny, his father Dr. Quest, their bodyguard Race Bannon, and Johnny's friend Haji as they traveled the world confronting spies, robots, and ancient mysteries. The animation was dark, stylish, and cinematic, unlike anything children had seen before, but the brilliance came with backlash. Parents and critics complained that the show was too violent for young viewers. Scenes involving guns, explosions, and death shocked audiences accustomed to comedic animal antics. Some networks even banned certain episodes in foreign markets, citing political undertones and depictions of Asian and Middle Eastern cultures. Behind the scenes, the production was revolutionary but punishing. The realistic art style designed by Doug Wildey demanded immense time and money. Hanna-Barbera spent nearly twice its usual budget per episode. The studio's resources drained fast and animators burned out. Executives panicked as costs soared while ratings struggled to justify the expense. By 1965, Jonny Quest was canceled after just one season despite critical praise. Yet the legacy never died. Its tone influenced generations from Indiana Jones to the Venture Brothers. What was once a commercial failure became a timeless classic, a reminder that visionary art often pays the price for being ahead of its time. Number 4. Space Ghost, 1966. Space Ghost was Hanna-Barbera's leap into pure space opera. Cloaked in mystery and wielding power bands of energy, the intergalactic hero fought villains across galaxies with his teenage sidekicks Jan and Jace and their pet monkey Blip. The design by Alex Toth stunned audiences with its serious tone and sharp, futuristic style. But networks hesitated. Parents feared the violence was too intense, while critics mocked it for lacking humor. The moody silence of its space scenes confused children who were used to laughter. Sponsors dropped out, and censors forced the studio to cut scenes of destruction and implied death. Behind-the-curtain production nearly collapsed under its own ambition. Toth's artwork was so detailed that animators could not keep up. Backgrounds were reused constantly, and scenes were often shortened to meet impossible deadlines. Staff members described the work as both exhilarating and exhausting. When ratings fell after the first season, executives quietly ended the series. Yet decades later, Cartoon Network revived Space Ghost in surreal form, turning him into a talk show host. Through parody, he found immortality. What began as serious science fiction became absurd comedy, proving that even failed heroes can evolve into legends. Number 3. The Mighty Mightor, 1967. The Mighty Mightor brought prehistoric heroism to Saturday mornings. It told of a young caveman Tor who, upon raising his magical club, transformed into the powerful Mightor protector of his tribe. Alongside his winged dragon companion Tog, he defended his people from monsters and villains in a world of lava mountains and ancient mysteries. The show's mythic tone thrilled young audiences but frightened parents. Complaints poured in that it glorified violence. Religious critics objected to the idea of a human drawing godlike power from a weapon. Network censors slashed entire fight scenes, leaving abrupt cuts. Inside Hanna-Barbera, the mood was tense. Artists adored the premise, but executives demanded faster output. Budgets shrank mid-season, forcing animators to reuse sequences from earlier episodes. Writers were instructed to soften plots and add humor that clashed with the serious tone. Despite these compromises, the Mighty Mightor developed a small, devoted following. After its cancellation in 1968, the hero faded into memory. Yet later generations rediscovered him as an ancestor of modern superhero storytelling. Mightor's primal courage and mythic strength proved timeless. He was not just another cartoon hero. He was a glimpse of animation daring to dream beyond its limits. Number 2. The New Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, 1968. Hanna-Barbera's boldest experiment combined live action with animation. The New Adventures of Huckleberry Finn followed Huck, Tom, and Becky, who escaped into a magical animated world. Each week they encountered strange kingdoms, evil sorcerers, and talking creatures while searching for a way home. It was groundbreaking, blending real actors with cartoon settings years before modern digital techniques existed, but audiences were baffled. Some found the visuals unsettling. Others said the concept was too complex for children. Critics accused it of disrespecting Mark Twain's work by turning literature into fantasy pulp. Production costs skyrocketed as filmmakers struggled with green screen technology still primitive in the 60s. Censors targeted scenes where villains appeared. Too frightening for younger audiences. NBC executives grew nervous and shuffled its time slot repeatedly. Crew members described the process as exhausting, with long hours and endless retakes to match human actors to animated backgrounds. By 1969, the show vanished after one season. Yet its influence survived in countless hybrid productions that followed, from Who Framed Roger Rabbit to Space Jam. It was ahead of its time and punished for that. A forgotten marvel that dared to merge worlds before the world was ready. Number 1. The Adventures of Gulliver, 1968. At the end of the decade, Hanna-Barbera turned to literary adventure once more with The Adventures of Gulliver. Inspired by Jonathan Swift's novel, it told the tale of Gary Gulliver and his dog Tag, shipwrecked on an island of tiny people called the Lilliputians. Together they searched for Gary's missing father while battling a villainous pirate named Captain Leech. Though visually stunning for its time, the show met resistance. Critics claimed it simplified classic literature, while educators objected to its fantastical reinterpretation. Religious groups complained about its portrayal of magic and evolution. Parents feared its darker themes were too intense for children. Behind the scenes, budgets were tight and creative exhaustion set in. The studio reused soundtracks and backgrounds from previous shows. Animators worked overtime, yet episodes still fell behind schedule. Despite strong writing and heartfelt moments, audiences dwindled. When it ended in 1969, Hanna-Barbera quietly moved on to lighter projects like Scooby-Doo. Yet decades later, The Adventures of Gulliver gained quiet admiration from animation scholars who saw it as the closing chapter of an era. It was not just a cartoon, it was the last heartbeat of 60s adventure storytelling before the studio turned toward comedy forever. These forgotten worlds remind us that even legends can vanish into static. Hanna-Barbera's 60s experiments dared to chase imagination beyond comfort and paid dearly for it. Yet every canceled frame whispered courage. Which of these lost shows deserves revival? Tell us in the comments, like the video, and subscribe for more untold histories from the vault of animation.